Okay, here we are at a point about 8 miles north of Willcox, Arizona, looking 40 miles ahead to Mount Graham, Arizona. Mount Graham is a mountain range that's about 45 miles long, and it's completely forested with ponderosa pine and alligator juniper, scrub oak, and all types of other varieties of vegetation. You have to forgive us for the noise out here. The wind is blowing like crazy, but we wanted to show you this footage anyways. And Mount Graham, by the way, rises 6,000 feet above the desert floor to a total height of almost 11,000 feet. It's the second highest mountain in Arizona, and also it is one of the great places of wildlife in Arizona. Mount Graham has the second largest black bear population in the United States of America. It's loaded with mountain lions, wildcats, cougars of all types, and white-tailed deer, mule deer, and all sorts of wildlife. And of course, it is one of the 5 best locations on the planet for astronomical viewing. I think the other locations are in Australia, New Zealand, South America, and Hawaii. As we begin to look a little closer at the mountain, we notice we're coming upon the Vatican telescope. And forgive us for the wind here today, it's ferocious. We're looking at the Vatican telescope right here, and that is approximately 40 miles away from us. So you can see that this is a huge building. This is a binocular telescope. They believe this is going to be better than the Hubble telescope because it has a new technology that'll allow it to take the waviness of the atmosphere away and see a clear image of things out in space. And so they have very high hopes for this. And in order to divert publicity, they've changed the name of this telescope from the Vatican telescope to the Mount Graham International Observatory. And it's just amazingly huge. And again, this is at the top of a mountain that's almost 11,000 feet above sea level, that is also over 6,000 feet above the desert floor down below here. So we're going to get on with the show here in a minute, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back with you in a second or two. Hi, I'm Jim Roger, and thanks for tuning in, by the way. And
I'm Peggy Kane.
And we're
the Cutting Edge.
Cutting Edge. Oh, thanks for coming, Peggy. We thought it would be kind of nice to get out in the wilderness for a while and do some on-location shoots. And as the audience, and we all just saw how windy it was over there, so we had to retreat into a secluded canyon here to get away from the wind. And I think it's such a windy day that there is going to be some interference with our audio out here from the wind, but
well, everyone will know that we're out on location, and this is just an extraordinary place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful, the rock formations and the blue sky. This is truly an Arizona place.
Oh yeah. Tonight's show, today's show, force of habit there.
Yeah,
today's show, yeah, will feature an interview with Jim Mars. As we all know, Jim is an outstanding investigative reporter and writer. He teaches journalism at Texas Christian University, and he's written many, many books, prolific writer. He's authored the definitive work on the Kennedy assassination, which is Crossfire. He has other works including The War on Freedom, Inside Job, Rule by Secrecy, Spies, The Alien Agenda. And so our show tonight will feature an interview with Jim Mars, and this interview deals with bizarre events at a location called Redgate, which is just a few miles east of Deer Lodge, Montana. Redgate is really just a secluded area where the teenagers up there like to go parking and cuddling at night. and sometimes they get a little bit more than what they bargained for. So both...
comment.
Yeah, we can imagine, right? Well, both Jim Mars and Linda Moulton Howe, I believe, found an intensive amount of UFO activity, UFO-related activity, I should say, that was confined just to this one little small area all the way back since 1947. And this is an explosive story. It's one of an isolated community's interactions with UFOs and aliens, you know, for over a half a century now. Dozens upon dozens, literally, of people have been involved with sightings, missing time, abductions as well. So why don't we roll right into our first video clip as Jim introduces himself and talks a little bit about himself and what he's been doing before we really get right into the subject of Redgate. So if we could, please, let's have that first clip.
Howdy, I'm Jim Mars, and journalist, author from Texas. Most people first heard of me when my book Crossfire concerning the Kennedy assassination became a basis for Oliver Stone's movie JFK. And then I went on to write about the next great deep secret government cover-up, UFOs, in a book called Alien Agenda. And that led to the question about, well then, who's really running the show down here on Earth? You know, the old adage, take me to your leader. Well, who is our leader? And that led to my underground bestseller, Rule by Secrecy. And then after 9/11, that really prompted me to take a look behind the superficial announcements and see what really went on, and it's not a pretty picture. And so I've produced a book called The War on Freedom, the 9/11 Conspiracies. Today I'd like to tell you that I have a new book out that I call Faction. It's fact-based fiction. And I learned this lesson from the tremendous success of the Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code, as far as the background and the history and some of the concepts, was pretty much covered in my book, Rule by Secrecy. But I spent years researching and footnoting and annotating my sources and wrote a very straightforward nonfiction account of these things, and it's done very, very well, but nothing like what happens when you put it into a nice, exciting story.
For any of you who had not had the opportunity to see Jim Mars at a conference or hear us speaking, he really is personality and knowledge. Now, he'll go and research a story. I mean, he's one of those journalists who doesn't just get handed the information and read it into the camera. He goes out and gets the story. And he actually was one of the first people to talk about the remote viewing program at Sanford Research Labs. And he could not get his book published. It wasn't until after others brought out the information that he was able to include it in the Alien Agenda. But he was one of the first people to investigate that whole program.
Yeah, and you know, the Army, the United States Army, had financed this remote viewing program, as Jim did bring out, for over 20 years. So this wasn't a fluke. It wasn't something that was fly-by-night. It was for real. It was really working. And they were budgeting this program for over 20 years. And a few weeks ago, I met a fellow that was in Army intelligence during that era, and he said when the rest of the on-the-ground type foot soldiers of Army intelligence had found out about the remote viewing program, they were furious. They were furious at the idea that people were sitting in isolated rooms and getting paid for it. I could imagine. But they were really pulling down meaningful data.
Yes, they were.
Well, there's no doubt about Jim's credentials. He's a prolific writer, and what I admire about Jim, he's not afraid to speak out or write about an issue in great detail. And more recently, he's, not to get off this subject that we want to stick to, but he has outspokenly written about 911.
Oh, yeah.
Very fascinating. And the guy, excuse me, he has courage. And he also teaches journalism at Texas Christian University. And in this topic of this show, he has conducted one of the most scientifically organized interviews to handle this enigma. He's done it so well, It's just so fascinating the way he did this. And as this show continues, I'm sure the audience will appreciate it even more so. And this is one of the greatest UFO cases to come along in a long time. This ranks up there, I think, with the Stan Romanek case as well. So in clip number 2, by the way, Jim relates that this case is indeed one of the most fascinating cases in recent UFO history. So why don't we go right into our second clip, and we'll learn more about this.
One of the most fascinating cases to come across my desk in a long, long time is a story that I've now been working on for more than a year, and we have produced a docudrama about. It's called The Secret of Redgate. Deer Lodge, a small tight-knit community lying in this picturesque valley in Montana. Clean place, quiet place, nice place to live. Howdy, I'm Jim Mars. I'm here to tell you one of the most fascinating stories I've encountered in my years as a journalist and author. You see, every little town has its secrets, but this town has a secret that's, well, out of this world. Let's check it out. This leads to an area known as Redgate. It used to be the favorite teen parking spot, you know what I mean. They call it Redgate because at the entrance was an old wooden gate, very much like this one, painted red. This was the hub of all the strange activity. And this place has been an eerie, spooky place. This is where you take your date and tell them all kinds of horror stories and get them to snuggle up close to you, right? But when we got up there, we found out that there was some reality behind all this. Even the local sheriff said that they had had reports over the years of people in this area encountering UFOs. Well, of course, you know, UFO encounters happen all over the place. But what I found here is that this town had a secret. Well, every little town has a secret, but this secret was literally out of this world. People in Deer Lodge have had ongoing experiences with UFOs dating back over 50 years. And it ranges from just lights in the sky, odd lights moving around in the fields, to lights chasing them in their cars, to them chasing lights in the cars, to absolute abductions and people being taken aboard spacecraft, being given the medical examination, etc., etc. There are physical traces involved in this story. It is just an amazing story because this all happened in one small community of Middle America, and we have we have probably 35 to 40 people on the record talking about this, and that's just the ones who were willing to talk. There were other stories that we were finding, but they didn't want to risk ridicule.
You know, this is one of the most fascinating cases that Jim said he had ever worked on. This is about a town that had a lot of secrets. Everybody had secrets. People were afraid to talk to each other. Well, maybe they're not experiencing what I am, and if I talk about it, I'll look like a fool, so nobody was talking about it. So everybody had secrets, but finally, when somebody went up there and cracked the ice, this stuff all came pouring out of the woodwork. Even the local sheriff up there was involved in stuff. 3 of the people were taken on board craft, lifted up into the craft, and while in the craft, now he didn't say this during the interview, but he did say it in his lecture at the International UFO Congress this past year, that 3 of the people, while they were on board craft, saw humans stored in plastic containers, and it looked like they were still alive while inside these containers. This is so bizarre. And these witnesses, Peggy, were independently interviewed. A lot of them were hypnotized, and while under hypnosis, they all came up with the same data. And there are many others, right up until the last day of their work up there, that were still coming out of the woodwork. They don't really know where this ends.
Yeah, it's amazing because it's not a big town, but yet it may be that there is a generational thing going on where the same people from the same families are being taken, and something's going on. But this whole thing of bodies being put in kind of containers, possibly in suspended animation, I've been doing some research on this, and this seems to be a common theme among different abductees. Linda Moulton Howe, in her book, Other Realities, I'm not getting the whole name of it, but she talks quite a bit with abductees who have seen human beings in different kinds of plastic or containers.
Transparent.
Some of them have body parts missing. Some of them have, and she even, well, it's an extremely bizarre side part to this whole abduction thing.
It actually goes beyond bizarre. Why do you think, what would the purpose be, in other words, for these containers? Why would they be doing this?
Well, my theory right now, Jim, my pet theory right now is that they are transferring the spirit or the soul from one human into another. I think they're also doing cloning. For some reason now, I never really believed this before, but right now my theory is, because I have done some research into this, that there is actually a shortage of souls in this part of the universe.
Take the soul and can the body, huh?
Soul has a manifested soul that is a very valuable commodity. And I believe that there are beings that are being created who need souls, or who desire to have souls. And so there's a lot of manipulation. I'm still kind of fuzzy about, I don't have a clear idea, probably nobody does, of just how this is all playing out. But there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we're not really understanding.
This whole scenario here in Montana really goes beyond bizarre.
It's in that it's so concentrated within this small town. So many people are having every kind of classical UFO experience.
Yeah. Well, in the next clip, Jim talks about the multidisciplinary approach that they use to conduct this investigation. And this is where the audience also now is going to learn to appreciate how thorough Jim was in his approach to ascertaining this information. So if we could roll the third clip, we'll learn a lot more about this right now.
There are literally thousands of abductee stories out there, and some of them, range from the ridiculous to the sublime. But usually it's one person who tells their story, and at that point it's like, well, do you believe them or not? In the case of Redgate, we applied a multidisciplinary approach in the investigation. We put some of these people through a polygraph examination, and I might say that absolutely none of them showed any signs of deception. Then we took some of the major instances that we found, and we got these people to agree to hypnosis sessions. And we would find out much more details through the hypnosis session. But I think the thing that really fascinated me most about this particular investigation was the scientific and structured application of remote viewing. Now, in case anybody doesn't know what remote viewing is, this is a technique, a psychic technique that was developed by the CIA and then used for 25 years by the U.S. Army, where you are able to connect your subconscious knowledge with your conscious mind. And at the subconscious level, we are conscious of many, many things around us. They were able to spy on the Russians and the Chinese and everybody else by simply sitting in chairs at Fort Meade and seeing enemy submarines and high-flying aircraft, etc., etc. We had 8 qualified, certified, professional remote viewers who would take a look at the cases that we were examining in Deer Lodge, Montana, and it was absolutely astounding. One of the stories was 2 small children, one of whom to this day has conscious memory of meeting small gray aliens in the woods. The other little girl had blocked the memory out of her mind, but under hypnosis, this all came back.
go meet my special friends.
No peeking. Hi! I can't move! You're not my friend.
They approached me with some very unusual instruments that probed my eyes, my nose, my mouth, and my ears. They didn't hurt me, but it scared me just because of the instruments.
Please stop it. Don't poke me.
As I was laying on the table, being probed by these instruments, this other entity appeared. She was different than the others and appeared to me to be a female, and she also appeared to be somewhat superior in authority to the others.
I like you. You're different. You're a lady, aren't you? You're a lady grasshopper. I can hear you. But you're not talking. Okay, I'll be good. I promise not to tell.
What you saw happened more than 50 years ago. The 5-year-old girl followed her brother's advice. She never told anyone about her experience. In fact, suppressed the memory deep inside herself. But her brother Steve remembered.
About 10 years ago, my sister called, and she told me that she just had hypnosis and was thoroughly upset with me that I didn't tell her about my little gray friends, which was a mystery to me because she was there and she'd kind of taken over my friends. What is the problem here? Why doesn't she know about it?
Now, was this true or not? 8 remote viewers who had no idea what the target was. They could have gone to look at the Great Pyramid, they could have gone to look at the Eiffel Tower, but they all were given a coordinate number that sent them to this particular target, and every single one of them said, these are 2 small children in the woods who are meeting non-human entities. This is the type of investigation that we applied to this particular case.
Well, Jim talks about the different methods of testing out these different people's experiences. One of them, which he puts a lot of stock in, is remote viewing, Jim. Now, you and I have both studied remote viewing, and I think it's interesting that he says that they used 8 different remote viewers, triple blind, which means that the remote viewers do not know what they're supposed to be remote viewing. This is the most important thing, because if you have an idea of what you're supposed to be seeing, your imagination will come in and give you a story almost every time. But if you have no clue, the data, if it is in fact relative to the target, will often be much more accurate. These 8 remote viewers were kept in the dark. They didn't know what the target was. The person who handed them the numerical target number did not know what the target was. And lastly, the person who gave the monitor the envelope, they didn't know what the target was. So you have a triple blind remote viewing session, and apparently all 8 remote viewers got right to the target, talked about exactly what was going on.
Right, eight separately isolated remote viewers in segments of 3 for each one of the 8. The monitor, first there was a remote viewer, the monitor, and the one who generated the targets. Well, there was a 4th one actually. one person generated the targets, passed it to another person who didn't know what they were, who passed it to the monitor who didn't know what they were, who passed it to the remote viewer who didn't know what they were. So this is really good isolation, and all 8 of the remote viewers isolated from each other, and they all came up with corroborating data. There was one incident where they all 8 of them saw 2 children meeting with ETs in the forest, and under later testimony, the children themselves
Yes.
testified to meeting these ETs in a nearby forest. So they really, and it wasn't just remote viewing, it was hypnosis, and I think they finalized all this stuff with a polygraph machine. And everything in this investigation corroborated. Very fascinating. It's a really solid case, and I guess Jim has made a docudrama about this. I think it's an hour and 15 minutes. You can get this on his website at Jim Marrs, www.jimmarrs.com. So it'd be worthwhile to watch, I think. You know, and as good as Jim is a writer, and I'm sure the docudrama is wonderful, but I would have, personally, I would have rather seen an in-depth documentary myself, personally.
Right. Well, we talked about that because you and I and the others in this field really want just the facts. But I think in his mind, you know, he talks about the Da Vinci Code being such a big seller because the average person may not be that interested in just reading facts and numbers and the case information, but wants to read it in an exciting story. So while that may not be quite as appealing to those of us who really just want the facts, he is trying to open this up to people who may not be quite there in their interest.
Yeah.
So I can understand that.
Yeah, and I can also understand that in order to create a good documentary, you really have to destroy a lot of people's privacy to do such a thing. And I can understand how people would want to preserve their privacy and their anonymity in this matter. And I do have full trust in Jim Marrs and investigative techniques. And Linda Howe was involved with this thing too, I guess, to some extent. I don't know. I've heard her reports on other radio shows. They were very fascinating.
I think Linda Howe is a really qualified investigative reporter. She does her homework. She gets in and does the work. You know, I have a lot of admiration for Linda.
Oh, I do too. Absolutely. I hear her on Whitley Strieber's internet radio show quite often, and she does a good job. I'll give her credit. She really gets out there and digs in. She's not an armchair quarterback. She's the real McCoy. She gets out there and does good, hard journalistic work. And Linda, if you're watching, we appreciate that. And in clip number 4, next clip, Jim mentions how this story, these events really cover a broad spectrum of people. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, you know, the sheriff.
And all ages, you know, from little children to elderly people, because it's been going on for 50 years that they know of. It's probably been going on longer than that, you know, who knows. But that's quite a span of the population there.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we watch clip number 4, our 4th clip, and see how much more we can learn about this broad spectrum of people that were involved in this clip. If we could go to that clip right now, please.
Again, the reason that this story fascinates me so much is because within the context of a small community in Montana, it represented a broad spectrum of the population. Some of this involved small children, some of it involved young teenagers. In fact, while we were there and filming out on one of the city streets, these 3 young guys came up, about 20 years old. They were students, and they asked us what we were doing, and we told them we were documenting some cases of UFO sightings in the area, and they said, well, here, listen to what happened to us. And they told this incredible story, and this was in July of 2003, and we said, well, that's a great story. When did this happen to you? And they said, last week. So this is ranging from the 50s to the 2003, to the young, to the older people. In fact, that's another thing. A lot of the people in Deer Lodge have known this secret for years and years, but they never told anyone, including their own families, because they didn't want people to think that they were unbalanced. They didn't want people to think that they were trying to hoax something or whatever. And for the first time, a lot of these people who are now getting along in years have decided, oh, what the heck? And they go ahead and tell their story. And the stories corroborate each other because it all happens in the same area to the east of the town, in the same area up there that's known as Redgate, and to the point to where some of the remote viewers were even saying that they were getting the impression that there was some sort of a portal there or a nexus point that, you know, these craft would come in and out of. Because of the relative isolation of this place and the fact that most of these people never wanted to really talk about this, in fact, as I said, some of them didn't even share it with their own immediate families, hard evidence, newspaper clippings, official reports were pretty sparse. But when you get up there and you begin to, people understand what you're talking about and they understand that you're not up there to make fun of them, it was absolutely amazing because people were literally coming out of the woodwork to try to tell their stories because so many of them have bottled up these stories for years. And again, the thing that strikes me is the fact that it's all centered in this one little town of 3,000 people. And it makes me wonder how many other small American towns might have a similar secret.
You know, Jim mentions, or he wonders how many other small American towns might have a similar secret. And that is actually kind of spooky when you think about it. You know, we don't know. There could be thousands of other little Redgates out there around the United States and the world, for that matter.
Well, I think the number of abductees is a very open-ended question, because while Redgate, a little town of 3,000, is having a huge number of abductions, you take a place like New York City where nobody really talks to each other. I mean, it could be 1 million people. And how would you even have a number on that? I know when we had the UFO abduction hotline going, and we had hundreds of calls. It was pretty overwhelming. And the one thing that I found was the first thing that people would say almost every time is, "You're going to think I'm crazy, but," and I heard that over and over again. The fear of being thought as being weird, crazy, abnormal, or being ridiculed has been so prevalent in this society that there could be untold numbers of abductees, and we'll never know because they've been scared to come forward. It is so out of our normal paradigm.
Yeah. And you have to admire their courage for coming forward. Absolutely. Yeah. It takes courage to do that. In this case, in Redgate and Deer Lodge, Montana, this has involved people of all ages, all profession, all walks of life, and all their stories agree. They all have a similar mode of operandi, I guess you'd call it. And the activity is so intense there also that Jim seemed to wonder if not this couldn't be some kind of a portal or a passing through place for these beings of other worlds and dimensions.
Not only that, but I've been hearing a lot and researching a lot about these underground bases and places where extraterrestrials live and operate out of, such as the Denver airport, the Mormon Tabernacle in Salt Lake City. I mean, this can get very controversial, but apparently, and according to Dr. Richard Souder, who has done a tremendous amount of work involving underground bases and tunnels, there's a tremendous amount of underground activity going on, most of which we have no idea about because there's levels beneath levels, and who knows, it could involve underground activity, it could involve a portal from another dimension, a portal from another star system, or maybe these extraterrestrials are actually living somewhere on the Earth, maybe in a different frequency. You know, the thing that has kept this in turmoil, this whole field, is that there is this paranormal and bizarre element to all of it. You we want everything to be cut and dried. This is happening for this reason, and this is how it works. And it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't.
No, it doesn't. No. Well, it seems that on his investigation, once people knew and realized why he was there, and that he was a qualified and certified journalist, I think he began to gain their trust. And the more people began to realize this, the more people seemed to come out of the woodwork.
Right.
And evidently, till the day he left, people were still coming out of the woodwork. So
Yes, yeah.
there is no telling where this all ends,
Well, they knew that he was respecting their stories, he was respecting their honesty, and he wasn't about to start making fun of them. And that is a key component, that people trust that he was legitimate, and that then they felt more comfortable. And when they saw that all their neighbors were coming forward, apparently it made them feel more confident that they could tell their secrets too, because it's a tough thing. I mean, when I did this hotline, there was a woman I remember who was terrified of even her husband. They were very strict Muslim, and it was a terror to her, not only to be having these abduction experiences, she had no one to speak to, and she was afraid of the condemnation of her husband and her family if this came out. I heard this over and over again. It puts so much stress, so much added stress on an abductee.
Well, you know my feelings about religion. Religion has always been a double-edged sword for this planet. For every good work it seems to try to do, it does equally as bad. I think a lot of religion down through the ages has been the major problem of this planet, and why humans can't get along with each other. We had the Christian Crusades. Now we have the Muslims in an uproar. I mean, it just never ends. I'm just sick and tired of it.
Yeah.
I have my own relationship with God. If anybody tells you out there that you need someone else to intercede to God for you, don't listen to them. You have your own private line to God, and I believe that, and I won't have anything to do with any man-made religion on this planet.
I agree with you.
In the next clip, Jim talks about the effectiveness of combining the three-pronged approach, the remote viewing with the hypnosis and the polygraph, a lie detector examination. And all three of these tools cooperated with each other during this investigation. That's why I think this investigation is remarkable, because it's not one of those he said, she said, and I heard that he said, she said that, or whatever. This is dealing directly with the people in a three-pronged approach with three different independent, separate tools that all proved effective, and they all balanced each other out. They all agreed with each other, So I think that's why this is a remarkable investigation, one that's worthy of talking about. So if we pay close attention, we'll go into clip number 5 and learn more about this three-pronged approach.
Not only does this secret of Redgate involve such a wide variety and spectrum of people, but of different topics. We touch on missing time, we touch on unexplained events, we touch on actual landings, we touch on abductions, we touch on people who come back and have weeping sores as if they had been burned by radiation. There's just a wide variety of these accounts, just about as wide as there is a wide variety of the types of people, age of people that's there. It's absolutely amazing, and it's all centered in this one community. As in the Travis Walton case, where they subjected you to a polygraph, we did that, the same thing. Just like in Betty Barney Hill, they went under hypnosis regression to try to find out what was going on. Well, we did that with some of our more important cases, but then we went that step forward. What was behind the polygraph? What was behind the hypnosis? And we turned, of course, to what was once a top secret government program of remote viewing. Now, at that point, we didn't even get 1 or 2 remote viewers. We had more than half dozen. I think there were 8 remote viewers involved, and what is astounding to me is that I was under the impression this was going to be a double-blind case, which means that the person who tasked the monitor with the target does not know what the target is, and then the monitor tasked the remote viewer who doesn't know what it is. But in this case, the person who actually presented the monitor with the target didn't know what the target was. So in other words, there's 3 cutouts there before you get to the remote viewer who have no idea what they're supposed to be looking at. And yet they all came up and saw the same thing. In the Bill Kelly case, all 8 of these viewers said these are 3 young men who were drawn into a saucer. So it's absolutely amazing, and I personally feel, and of course I cracked the story open of remote viewing back in the early 90s and have kept up with it ever since. And in my personal opinion is that remote viewing, if applied correctly, and if the methodology is kept strictly, the protocols are kept correct, that this may be the best avenue we may have for penetrating the UFO enigma.
Well, you know, the interesting thing, Jim, of course, everything about this is interesting, but how I believe that those who see the world in this 3-dimensional, you know, day-to-day, time, linear reality are missing probably 90% of what is actually going on. Mm-hmm. That our conscious minds are really so limited, and that there's so much behind the scenes, so much blocked out of what we consciously remember. And I know that having studied some of this, again, alien interaction with some people, that some individuals are traumatized in order to fragment their minds, so that they can then have their minds even more controlled. Now, that is not to say that is happening here, but you figure that people going through their day-to-day lives, I mean, this what's happening to these people is so extraordinary.
Yes. Yeah.
That how do you relate that to getting in your car and going to work, you know, and going to the factory and going to the grocery store? It's just so out of the normal reality. I really see life more and more now like the Matrix movie. I really do.
And you know what this reminds me of is there was a movie years ago called Pleasantville, and it was about a paradigm. This was back in the 50s. It was like the way people lived back in the 1950s, the Ozzie and Harriet age. And everybody saw everything in black and white. Well, a few people became open-minded, and they began to see everything around them in beautiful color. And they started mentioning it to each other, and they were thrilled to enjoy the experience of visualizing things in color because they became more open-minded. Well, the other folks that were still the majority, that were still seeing everything in black and white, well, they ostracized these other folks that could see things in color. Sure. So I guess when you open up to the UFO enigma, it's almost like that in the community, so to speak, you know.
Well, there's a Japanese expression that's something like, the nail that stands up is the first to get hit.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like if you're not just being a part of the masses and you're standing out, you could get hit. But then, of course, that's the fun of it too.
Yeah.
Not the getting hit part, but really asking these questions and wondering what's going on.
Yeah. I think that one of the wonderful things that has been learned in this case, as Jim has just brought out in the previous clip 5, that the ETs try to block the memory of people that have been involved with things. So now, with hypnosis and remote viewing, we can jump over that hurdle now. We can get past that now. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what has happened in this case. So we can, as Jim said in the previous clip, we can penetrate the UFO enigma this way. We can get past the blocked memories with the remote viewing and the hypnosis sessions, and then we can verify it with the polygraph machines.
Right.
So I think this is wonderful, you know. And, you know, again, this involves some pretty serious stuff. Missing time, landings, abductions, all types of body marks, in other words, physical evidence, all in this one community. And now we're able to get over the hurdles and penetrate this stuff. And for you other researchers out there, take good heed on this. Remote viewing, hypnosis, and the polygraph. I think we've learned a lot from Jim Mars on this one, and I take my hat off to him, you know. And I did hear, who was it? Was it Deborah Lindemann? Somebody that was involved with, I'm not sure, I can't remember now, but I did hear somebody that was involved with the hypnosis part of this case. And very firmly and strictly, this person said that there were no leading questions, and all the information wasn't the result of a leading question, but it was volunteered and laid right out there by I wouldn't say victims, but the abductees or whatever. So now the ETs, they can block our memories, but we can get past it, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
We're learning ways to circumvent their screens and their blockages, and I think we are getting ready for a quantum leap. That is my belief. Humanity, and certainly there are people in the forefront of this, but I think that there are going to be ways that we are going to start waking up. We're going to understand more of what's going on. People are not going to be able to lie.
No.
I think people already...
That means there won't be any politicians, right?
Oh, that's another show. Yes. Can you imagine if there was just total honesty?
Oh, what a wonderful world it would be.
Life would change very quickly.
No more wars. Just a beautiful, peaceful humanity. I've always had a dream of a humanity that was unhampered by other forces that are indeed trying to hold us back. And if these forces were removed, I see limitless possibilities for humanity with the soul and the spirit and the imagination that we have in this universe. And I really do, at this point in time, believe that something has been holding us back for 6,000 years of recorded history in this life cycle alone by itself, I mean. So
I would agree with that. And I also think that we can be very naive and not want to know anything that's negative, or we can look at the whole picture and then realize that we can empower ourselves to go beyond it, help others go beyond it. So I think that it's good to have the overview and then work with the positive, empowering energy and try to make things better that way, rather than just getting really caught up in the whole drama and getting pulled into the negative energy. And I don't think that really solves the problem, although I have to say there are times when I get really pissed off at things going on, but I try to not stay in that place.
I do, and I do maintain a positive attitude that we can overcome some of these hindrances to humanity and continue to move on and move forward. Could you imagine if we had never had a war and we had really learned to love one another and hadn't had these petty differences that we're now killing each other over? How far progressed the human race would be right now? I think we would have been traveling to the stars and beyond a long, long time ago.
And maybe in a parallel Earth we're doing that.
Who knows?
Maybe this particular Earth we just got sidelined, and but now we're having to. I don't know, maybe it's a strengthening thing. You know, who knows? You can get into all kinds of philosophical discussions, but I do think it's good to stay in a positive framework, frame of mind with all this as much as possible.
Absolutely, I agree, Peggy. In the next clip, in clip number 6, Jim talks about cars stalling, lights moving around in the middle of the night. So let's stay tuned. Let's go to clip number 6, please.
The name Redgate came from this red gate up there to the east of the little town of Deer Lodge, which was the object for many years of some urban legends about a person who murdered his entire family and spread their blood on the gate, and their spirits haunted the area. But it turned out this was simply an urban legend, a cover story for the real mystery, which was cars stalling and lights moving around at night. And this, of course, took us right into the UFO. Now, I want to say that the polygraph examination, the raw data of the remote viewing, the photographs that we took of everybody involved. What we have available now is this documentary. I am planning in the near future to do maybe a book detailing this, but all of the raw data is going to be made available over the websites. Secrets, Redgate Secrets, I believe, or it's the other way around. JimMars.com can take you there. We're going to have all this evidence and all this documentary material available for the public to view, so you can go through and see for yourself what all these people have done. The docudrama itself is approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes long. And of course, we are shopping around to see if we couldn't interest one of the channels or one of the networks or something like this. I think the time has come for us, the public, to be exposed to the reality of these stories.
Well, you know, Jim really feels strongly that the time has come for the public to be exposed to the reality of this phenomena. And you know, he also feels that it's at least in this case, it's an interdimensional phenomena. He thinks that perhaps there's a portal there where things are coming in and out and in and out. And unfortunately, humans are involved in this. And one of the big remaining questions that Jim also had in this case was, is this the only town where this type of phenomena is going on? There could be many, many other Redgates all around the world, for that matter. We just don't know, you know. So, you know, I think that it is time for the public to wake up about this. I think that if everybody in the UFO field wants the political arena to take us seriously, we have to act seriously. We have to get the UFO issue off the third rail from the politicians, because a politician won't touch this stuff with a 10-foot pole right now until the constituency wants it, and all of a sudden then that's what they want, because they're politicians. So this is what we have to do.
Well, we're up against a lot of things. The media doesn't give us any credence, or very, very little, the mainstream media. You talk about the politicians. People are kept so busy making a living, you know, with the kids in school and all these day-to-day things, that I think it's also a part of the whole agenda. Keep people busy, distracted, dumbed down by drugs, genetically altered foods, all kinds of, pollution in the air. This is another whole show, Jim.
Absolutely.
But I think that there's a lot going on, and I also think that while we have been warring for forever, and we've talked about this, I do think that there's a Machiavellian issue behind this that keeps people fighting. Keep us fighting, because there's money to be. Who benefits? The arms dealers. There's a benefit that's out of this, and it's not the people of this planet.
I know William Bramley's book, The Gods of Eden. It's a wonderful book. If you haven't read it, it's required reading for UFO research as far as I'm concerned. It's just a wonderful book. And it leaves not only that book, but other things I see going on. Leave no doubt in my mind that something is out there that is trying to interfere with humanity and hold us back from reaching our potential. For whatever reason, I don't know. Because I see human potential as limitless. I think it's just amazing the things that we could do. But in the meantime, we're still stuck in this 6,000-year time loop of clubbing each other to death like baboons. We're supposed to be intelligent people. We're still killing each other. We're doing it more efficiently now with sophisticated satellite weaponry and smart bombs. But I think as soon as we can bypass this force or get it out of the way, I still have faith that there are great things in store for humanity. I
would agree with that, and I think that we're sort of at a nexus point now, because things can really go either way. I mean, things are really heating up in the Middle East, and I think the potential for great evil and great harm is there, but also tremendous strides.
And speaking about great things in store for humanity. What about that Vatican telescope up there that we opened the show with? Huh? They're looking for something out there.
They certainly are. You wonder why a religious organization would be so interested in spending many millions of dollars, much controversy, because that area was considered sacred by some of the Native American tribes around here. But what in the world, what outside of this world are they so interested in to go through all that to have that telescope there?
I don't know. They're obviously looking for something. But one of the ironic things about that telescope is that they located it on a sacred Indian site. And you know what they named that telescope?
I'm ready.
Columbus.
Oh, how nice. Nothing like kicking a person when they're down.
I'm not going to say another word.
Oh, my gosh.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Folks, we apologize for this wind, but we did want to get out here on location and show you one little area around Arizona. Next time we'll be somewhere else, a different area with a different story. Again, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your viewership. Tell a friend and get them to watch too. And one soul at a time, hopefully we'll be waking up humanity. Thanks for tuning in, folks.